Sometimes all it takes for Araki to begin workshopping a whole character is to imagine a thing that he wants to see in his manga and then expanding on it. This is seen best in how he designed GioGio in his stand, White Album. As Araki explains, he wanted to see someone ice skate down a road, thus he made a stand where that was possible, and from there he built GioGio's whole personality off of that stand. And with that understood, it's unsurprising that a stand with a similar design to White Album would share a similar origin story, down to even the man inside of it being interesting. This being the dangerous doctor's dry dirt digging doggy deviant director dabbling in dubious dealings, Secco, and his stand, Oasis. Secco is one part of the devilish duo known as Cioccolata and Secco, who end up attacking Bruno's crew during the near end of Part 5, and in turn were kept on a short leash in Passione. Which is interesting, because Secco appears on the surface to be nothing more than Cioccolata's lapdog, but once you dive deeper into the man underneath the suit, you see how unstable he is, and quickly realize that he might be the worst person of the two. Though before we get too deep into that, let's understand the meaning behind his name and design. Starting first with his name. Much like the rest of the cast of Part 5, Secco is named after an Italian word, with his being specifically the Italian term for dry, though the word itself holds quite a few meanings when applied to other mediums, like within the world of art, where you have things called Fresco Secco, or dry frescoes, which is a primitive style of painting that has existed for thousands of years, dating all the way back to the Bronze Age. And the Fresco Secco went through a revival actually during the Italian Renaissance, thanks in part to Giotto di Bodone. The process itself involves painting over dry plaster versus the standard fresco, which is done on a fresh wet set of plaster. It works by soaking the plaster you are working on with lime so that it can create a film-like layer over top of it and doesn't actually penetrate into the plaster itself. The technique was used to give paintings incredible detail or touch up classic frescoes, but resulted in them being less durable overall. And Secco the character matches up well with both eras of the Fresco Secco style's history, as on the surface, Secco appears to be extremely primitive, much like the original art was, as he doesn't just act uncivilized. For all intents and purposes, Secco is written like an animal early on, playing into the stereotypical wild man character, be it him barely able to speak normally, or developing animal-like traits like accurate spitting or advanced hearing to fit his role even more. Though that was indeed what it was, a role. Under the surface, Secco is a lot smarter than he leads on. Not book smart per se, but much like how the Italian Renaissance revolutionized an ancient style of painting, Secco reveals that his skills come from his high level of thinking and analysis. Not only is he capable of speaking normally, but he was using Cioccolata for his book smarts. And when off his leash, Secco becomes way more dangerous than anyone could have expected. Thus, just like how a Fresco Secco needs a lot of maintenance to keep stable, Secco the character needs Cioccolata to keep him from going bad. And mentioning Cioccolata, much like how his name is an ironic twist on the sweetness of chocolate, Secco's name seems to be ironic for two reasons. First, like Cioccolata, it being in reference to a sweet-tasting treat, that being sparkling wine known as Prosecco, which is rather famous around Italy, and can be commonly paired together with chocolate to be given as a romantic gift on holidays, which is likely why the two are not only a team, but why there are some romantic undertones between them. Along with this, Secco's name seems to be ironic in the sense of his ability, as his name means dry, but he makes his area around him wet. This ability is Oasis. Oasis is a unique type of stand in JoJo, this being because it is a wearable stand, and it's very similar in practice to Giocchio's own White Album. The design is meant to be similar to that of a wetsuit, but the stitchings on the body seem to me like surgical sutures, likely in reference to his relationship with Cioccolata as Secco met him as a patient. Along with this, given how similar it is to White Album, it leads me to believe that the main body is comprised of hardened mud, like how White Album is comprised of ice, though Araki describes it having the feeling of scales to assist in its movement through the earth, though how it forms itself I feel like is based on its one major ability, that being ground liquefaction. How ground liquefaction works is while Oasis is active, any solid ground that Secco comes in direct contact with becomes malleable like mud. The effect of the liquefaction works in a radius from Secco going outwards around 10 meters, which the liquefying effects decrease in power the further it goes out. And if any part of the ground exits that 10-meter range or is no longer in contact with either Secco or the ground that he is using his ability on, it instantaneously turns back into a solid form, though it tends to be misshapen when it does. This allows Secco to use his stand for both mobility, as it allows him to swim through the ground like it was made of a mud puddle, but also offensively, as he can suck up liquefied dirt around him and then spit it out into extremely heavy and sharp projectiles, which is a style of attack that Secco has become especially good at. Though beyond an ability that just offers Secco great options, Oasis directly increases his physical abilities as well, as while wearing it, Secco can not only directly fight stands, but thanks to a clever usage of his ability, he can rebound his own punches so they come out stronger and faster than he normally could. Along with this, he's also shown to be fast enough to outmatch Sticky Finger's normal attacks and even being able to block bullets by either using his armor or quickly creating spit rocks to deflect them. Now, even though this ability is known as ground liquefaction, to call it liquefaction is actually more accurate, as it can be applied to anything that Oasis is touching, as shown when he destroys Cioccolata's camera. It can even be applied to people, as if Oasis has pulled a person underground, they will eventually be liquefied with the earth inside of it. But beyond just that, just holding the person is enough for Secco to be able to melt them, as shown when he was holding Doppio hostage. And it's this aspect of Oasis that really shows how much Secco was using Cioccolata in their partnership, as while Oasis's ability makes Green Day more effective, it doesn't entirely need Green Day to get a similar desired result. In fact, the snuff junkie that Secco is, his Oasis's melting property is probably more appealing to him visually than how Green Day works, which is why he breaks it out after Cioccolata's death. Along with this, the melting nature of his stand could play into Prosecco, the wine that he likely gets his name from, being a dietary wine intended to help someone digest their meal. His liquefaction could be a manifestation of this aspect of his name. Though one of the main drawbacks of Oasis is that while Secco is submerged, he cannot see. But he gets around this by using his superhuman level hearing, along with his own analytical skills, seismically reading the area and attacking places that are giving off enough noise. But ultimately, this is his undoing, as his sensitive hearing can create a weak point and cripple his ability, either by creating distraction noises or full-on just bursting his eardrums. Now, Oasis gets its name from the English rock band formed in 1991, Oasis, which started out as The Rain. But after the brothers Liam and Noel Gallagher joined the band as a whole, they changed their name, image, and sound, which allowed them to quickly become an international success with their first 2 albums. Oasis became megastars in their home country, being able to release anything and it would top the charts, as shown with the Wibbling Rivalry album, which was an audio recording of the brothers' violent argument, which managed to top charts and become the highest charted interview in the entirety of the UK. Though it was their second studio album, What's the Story, Morning Glory, that became their peak. And with this album came arguably their most successful song of all time, Wonderwall, which not only charted in the UK, but all around the world. And the song even remains in the cultural subconscious of the world, as its simple chord structure made it an unforgettable earworm. It even became the band's biggest single release, which even had a René Magritte-inspired cover, which, given Araki's obsession with Magritte's work, I imagine he selected it partly for that reason. Along with this, the name fits the idea of Secco and his ability, as an oasis is a special location within a dry desert that has vegetation and water, which is perfect for a man named Dry making his environments wet. Along with this, both the band's history and aspects of their biggest hit can be found in Secco's own character, along with his relationship to Cioccolata, starting first with the obvious fact that Secco and Cioccolata are designed to be a group, similar to how Liam and Noel formed Oasis, and much like how Oasis wouldn't exist without the rain welcoming Liam and Noel into the band, Secco and Cioccolata's stands wouldn't exist if they didn't find each other and join Passion together. Also, Liam and Noel worked in a similar manner, with Liam being the talent of the two and Noel being the brains. The group used Noel's ideas to create songs that made them famous. One of these songs was Wonderwall, which at the time Noel claimed the song was aimed at his wife-to-be, Meg Matthews, which is how the song is interpreted up until their later divorce in 2001. But that came long after Part 5 serialization had ended. ended. Thus, Wonderwall's romantic connotations would still be applied to the song at the time, and it would seem that this romantic aspect of Wonderwall rubbed off on Secco and Cioccolata's perceived relationship, as given how Cioccolata spoke to Secco in his final moments, using terms like "I love you," it left a lot of people with the impression that their relationship extended beyond just being partners. Though, as Secco would soon reveal, if that were true, their partnership was incredibly one-sided, as once Cioccolata died, Secco showed he was no pet. He only followed Cioccolata's orders out of respect for his intellect, sugar cubes, and money, and nothing else. He was using him to live out his fantasies and coast through life the easy way. And it's this revelation that says a lot about Secco's own personality, and how he might actually be a worse person than Cioccolata, as the two of them teamed up together due to a shared interest in seeing someone suffer. Cioccolata developed these fascinations through both his sense of twisted satisfaction from seeing someone die, but also out of a scientific curiosity. His experiments were done and recorded to further his abilities, where Secco does this all for the purpose of watching someone suffer and die. Secco is a senseless murderer who plays the role of a mindless dog for his own amusement. He's someone who can be easily labeled as the trash of society that Bruno is looking to clean up. Someone who used, killed, and tormented people for purely his own gain and amusement, and this is why he was disposed of in the same way. And while his send-off wasn't as spectacular as Cioccolata's record-breaking beatdown, it would appear that Secco left an impression on Araki enough that he would recreate him and Cioccolata later on in JoJolion in the form of Urban Gorilla and his pet, Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti Do, which is a figure I'll have to cover in the future. Secco and Cioccolata were truly a perfect pair of degenerate bastards, equal in their awfulness, and dished out to both the deuteragonists of the part so that they could be swiftly punished for their crimes, and fated to join together in trash. And if you enjoyed this video and want to help support me and my channel for the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps make this channel run as smoothly as it does now. And if you want to become strong enough that you can swim through land, well, you can do so by buying a copy of Shimonetta at BuyShimonetta.com.